number here, but it's
Ready?
mhm.
Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm really excited to make this announcement. As you know, there have been many stories in the recent past about IT and computer projects that didn't quite go well. And I'm really proud to be able to say today that we are, I've just approved a new mandatory governance process to ensure the success of state IT programs and projects moving forward. As you know, this past session, there were many concerns raised, many promises made in the past about important IT infrastructure that's necessary in order to move the state forward. I agree with all of those. However, the state really hasn't done a great job of managing these projects. We have made substantive changes about how we do IT on a going forward basis. It really is about changing the trajectory of state government. As you know, we canceled procurements that we felt we could not afford. We've canceled contracts and projects and pursued recovery of funds from contractors that did not live up to the contract. And this governance process is another step in doing IT better in state government. I will be implementing and have used this process on the state tax modernization project. It was the first pilot that we moved on. But more importantly, this new mandatory procedure will apply to all state projects and moving forward. All those projects of $1 million or more moving forward. It also applies to enterprise modernization projects identified by the Chief Information Officer. Typically, what we're trying to do is ensure that as we implement these projects across state departments, that they are interoperable and that we can utilize core IT resources across departments if it makes sense. Our goal is to ensure that each and every information technology project does have a return on investment for the taxpayer, whether that be hard dollars, whether it be savings, whether it be other benefits. We want to make sure that the taxpayer is getting good value for the tax dollars. We are working hard to restore faith in government that we can do IT right, and this governance process is just one more step moving forward. And with that, I'd like to introduce the Chief Information Officer, Todd Nakapoy.
Thanks, Governor. Under our IT governance process, projects must pass several gates during 4 key phases. The first being our concept phase, the second phase being our initiation, the third being planning, and the fourth our contract execution phase. This graduated approach provides multiple review points for our IT investments and projects from inception to completion. The IT governance process also has been set up to promote efficiency and accountability. It helps us make smart, informed, and coordinated decisions about our IT investments, our portfolios, and it'll help us incorporate our strategic goals, objectives, leverage our value, and mitigate risk. The process will also require that state executed contracts include all necessary functional and technical requirements. So what does that mean? For example, should a contract delivery metric not be met as determined by the designated state administrator, the state will reserve the right to withhold payments due to that insufficient performance. Overseeing this implementation, we were able to hire an IT governance officer, and I'd like to introduce him right now. His name is Todd Amora. Todd, could you please stand? Todd brings extensive experience, knowledge, and expertise gained as an enterprise asset management consultant, a researcher, and economist. Thank you, Todd. I'd like to turn back over to you.
So thank you again. This new procedure really is just another step of us in making the changes so important to improving the core functions of state government. This is one more process so that we can ensure that taxpayer-funded projects are executed well, managed well, and most importantly, delivers the services for which it was contracted for. And so with that, we'll open it up to questions, if you have any.
Governor, up to this point, what's been the problem? Have the departments been sort of moving off in their own direction without any kind of centralized oversight? What's the issue?
I think that the issue has been a couple. For one, I do believe that the state had a history of over-reliance on contractors. You know, I've always said that, you know, the state IT personnel was very thin and too thin for the systems that they had to implement. And so it was not unusual for the state to hire a contractor to develop requirements. They would hire a contractor to help evaluate the proposals, and then they would hire a contractor to help manage the project's implementation. You know, I think that what we're trying to do is build core capability within state government to keep contractors honest.
And was that consultant hiring done without sort of supervised by ICSD or by OMT?
I think that there really wasn't the consolidated focus that I think that the legislature had envisioned when we created the chief information officer. And we are putting in place the processes to assure that the systems, when approved, can be interoperable when appropriate. More importantly, that we can leverage investments across departments to reduce the total investment required in IT systems.
If these are like best practices, this gate system, I mean, shouldn't our procurement department be doing some of this stuff, or?
You know, I do think that this is a continuous improvement process. You know, we are looking at all facets of state government and looking to make improvements as we go along. You know, some of these are best practices in other jurisdictions and they weren't implemented consistently, I guess, in state government. And this new governance policy will assure that on a going forward basis, that all projects will be scrutinized. There will be a cost benefit analysis done, and the assessment would be that there would be a benefit to the taxpayer and the community in general.
And this is just $1 million threshold for just the IT contracts?
Yes, that's for this
IT projects, yes.
Is there anything that you're looking at for just other large contracts in other departments?
We are making progress in all departments. You know, for example, Department of Transportation is looking at similar kind of establishment of project management, contract management expertise. Department of Accounting and General Services is the other agencies that do a lot of contracting. Similarly, are looking at building the capacity, you know, providing training for staff and others, so that we can be more systemic and appropriate in managing contracts.
Are there penalties also if, let's say, there are completion dates for some of these projects? I mean, as opposed to just withholding money for work not completed, but.
So again, that's one of the reasons why, like the governor is saying, is we're trying to set up a standardized process across all the state governments so that when we go through contract management, that there is standards that are put into all contracts, so that there are standards obviously today, but again, we're trying to ensure that as we move forward, that there are going to be penalties, there will be some things like withholding payment, and there's metrics that need to be met in order for the contractor to get paid, right? And there has to be a sign off for that says that that contractor has met the requirements of the contract before payment is made. That again is to help us ensure that our projects as we move along are going to be successful.
Governor, you mentioned that you used the bill tax project as a pilot. I know they were in a huge hurry to get that project out before the next tax season. Did you have to ask them to pull back, or how did that work?
So what we try to do again with this process is a very dynamic process. So it doesn't mean that you have to come in day one. We were able to adopt a process to basically do an IB&B for tax. And so we are participating with tax. We have a memorandum of understanding signed with them for us to help them along in this process. right? So we are providing some project management support and IT support for the tax project.
Were they required to redo the RFP or a fraction of it or anything like that? Not yet.
Is there something else that needs to be done before the legislature in order to implement this at all, or?
No, I do believe my signing the executive order or directive implements it. And so this process is in place and will be in place going forward. You know, we have had extensive consultation with the legislature to ensure that it was meeting legislative intent. As you know, this past year, the budget had taken appropriations out of the departments and centralized it, and then asked us to develop a better system to ensure that some of the best practices are implemented, and then more importantly, to ensure that the different systems as developed can be leveraged and ensure that we get the best value for the public taxpayer moving forward.
So as far as the modernization of IT, of our systems, where are we in all that?
So, you know, as I stated before, I think it is a continuous improvement process, but let me just talk about the things that we've done already. You know, we have changed how we contract. As I said, we've canceled procurements that we believe we couldn't afford. We've canceled contracts and pursue recovery of costs when we believe that the contractor was not performing as the contract required. You know, this governance process is another piece of that. How we are put into place a mandatory process for every project over $1 million to review scrutiny to ensure that taxpayer is getting a return on taxpayer funds so that there is a clear benefit. We have restructured and reorganized the department. We've reclassified the positions as appropriate, and that is in the process. You know, we do have to consult with the unions and others, but we are functioning as one team in the Enterprise Resource Services Department, integrating and consolidating OIMT with the baseline operations. And this is a continuous process. You know, we will continue to work. You know, a big challenge that Todd still has is recruitment and retention of the best and brightest to be part of the state team that allows us to move forward. And we've done a great job of assembling that. We've looked at existing personnel and moved them into, I think, challenging positions and asking everyone to be part of us finding solutions for IT projects to be more effective and efficient.
Question for Todd, if I could. Todd, I understand you've asked for an additional 40-some positions for OIMT going forward. Is this part and parcel with that, or can you speak to what that's for?
So the 40 positions are for what we're calling our mostly our single points of failure. So how we as a organization, ICSD, has in the past been affected by RIFs and force reductions. And so we have about 130 staff right now, technical staff that are managing, large enterprise systems. And so this is, again, trying to get some of those workforces back so that we don't have what we call single points of failure, where if someone was to retire, this knowledge loss systems wouldn't function as needed be. And so again, we're trying to get back to levels appropriate before the RIFs. That's what those positions are for.
Most of them seem to be in security. Is that a pressing issue for you?
Obviously, security is top of mind for any IT organization, and yes, some of them are in security as well as other facets of IT.
And does that also tie into this process, this new process?
So we do have some positions that are part of this process that would be for the technical side. So obviously there needs to be technical oversight when we review RFPs and things along those natures. And yes, so if you look at some of the position descriptions, they specifically talk about the technical aspect of the work.
What about the location of the brains of our system? I mean, are they still in the basement? And
The data center still is the data center, and it's still in the basement of the Kalani Moku building. we have stood up, and Todd is in, we've executed an agreement with the University of Hawaii. As you know, they've constructed and opened a brand new data center. And so we are making and using space in that facility so that we can get a more resilient data center. And you guys are in the process of moving some of that stuff over right now.
Yeah, I asked that because I think it was like 10 years ago, what we saw with the floods going into the library where all the computers were. And then at that point, there was a study, a report saying, hey, what is the vulnerability of our computers statewide? And that was one of the things that was addressed. I think with the DOE, and I mean, if these machines spit out government workers' paychecks and there's a weakness in the system, what is our plan for getting it out of the basement and what's the time frame?
Yeah, we definitely have a plan to get it out of the basement, and, we continue to make improvements all the time, so.
So again, like Governor was saying, we do have a agreement with the University of Hawaii, with another state partner, right, in a partnership, helping us move our data center to UH. So again, that is part of the plan, is to have our backup data center at the University of Hawaii in their new facility.
Is there no backup system now?
So we do have backup systems now. They are in different locations. Some are with departments, some are actually at VR Fortress. But again, this is to consolidate our systems into one single data center. And then moving forward, we'll have a production data center as well. And then again, I believe we'll be talking about that later this month.
So, this is just part of our restructuring, how the state does IT. On the policy side, we've established this policy to ensure that every project goes through that cost-benefit analysis. On the policy side, we made decisions that we will cancel procurements that we can't afford. We will cancel contracts and go after recovery of funds when a contractor fails to perform. We're going to establish this new system going forward for better project management and project control so that we can ensure implementation once a contract or a project is approved. We've restructured and reorganized the IT department to be integrated. We have gone to broadbanding and have been changing the job definitions and changing the way we manage our people. We are focused on creating incentives. Todd and I spoke at the MIS recruitment up at the University of Hawaii in the Shidler College of Business. And I told all the CIOs that we are committed to making working IT for the state of Hawaii the best job in IT that anyone could want. And part of that is the broadbanding, allowing us to recognize on-the-job training, allowing us to recognize certifications that are so vital and critical in the IT industry so that we can recognize and acknowledge our employees who on their own time or even OJT acquire those skills. We want to create the opportunity for us to attract the best and the brightest and figure out a way that we can reward them for skills that are critical to moving us forward, especially in the IT area.
Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.